Video games seem like a bit of harmless fun. You're playing with your friends, you're talking to them, you're socializing, and on the surface it looks like a positive thing. But in 2025, things have changed. Games are no longer like Tetris and Pac-Man. Modern games have been scientifically engineered to become addictive, so you don't want to do anything else. And if you don't understand the hidden mechanics of why video games are so addictive, then you can be at major risk. My name's Adair, and for the past 10 years, I've been helping thousands of gamers stop playing games so they can start playing life. And in this video, I'm going to reveal the hidden truth about gaming addiction that's affecting millions of people just like you and me. So stick with me, because today we will expose the gaming industry's darkest secrets through the very people who have experienced its darkest side.
Just for clarity, the video games industry is worth more than music, TV, and film combined together. The video games designers understand human psychology more effectively than anybody else on the planet.
From an early age, we were consumed by video games. I used to literally run home from school just so I could go and level up in RuneScape. I didn't care about girls. I wanted XP, I wanted money, all in the virtual world.
I was playing computer games online all night. I was winning major competitions, but inside, I was struggling. I couldn't stop, even though I wanted to. I'd start playing the games with maybe all the intention was just to play for an hour and a half or something like that, and then I'd head off to the club and go to practice snooker. Problem is, if you're a super competitive person, I can't walk away from the computer with a defeat. I've got to get on a good winning streak before I can leave the house happy and then go to practice. It's like a gambler trying to finish on a win or get a really good winning streak.
I disturbed him.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, hello, and he'll be, what is it? I don't think Neil realised at the time the effects it had on everyone else around him.
And I'd be playing for like 18 hours straight. And to me, it would only feel like 3 hours. And the next minute I know, like the birds are tweeting outside and it's starting to get quite light. The sun's coming through and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to go to bed.
I have been the guy that played a lot of video games. I have been the guy that tried to combine playing video games with real life, with being productive and working towards my big goals by only allowing myself to play 1 hour of video games in the evening after all my work was done. But when I was working during the day, when I was being productive, there was constantly something in the back of my mind that was telling me, I cannot wait to play that video game tonight. I cannot wait to unlock this thing or to discover this new thing in the video game. My life's motivation was not actually pointed towards my goals. To a certain extent, I brought up the discipline to still work, but I didn't feel that true hype, that true motivation to work towards my goals. But instead, I felt a motivation to just force myself to continue to work and then go back into the video game. My true life motivation was pointed towards the video game.
Like, how fanatical are you about video games?
Let's just say that I had to quit the game for a good going on a year now.
Which one?
World of Warcraft.
I remember waking up at 3 a.m. before school so that I could play video games, from Halo 3 to all of the Call of Duties to League of Legends. I was addicted, to say the least. Increasing my level in video games took priority over increasing my level in real life.
I would be playing video games and I would just try to fit in some work that would lead to something better, right? The priority was the video games. The work was just something I did in between.
I played World of Warcraft. Bad addictive.
Oh my God, it was the worst. Yeah, I almost flunked out of college.
I was gonna say, did it affect your real life?
It really, really did. It like hampered my entire social life, but it was worse for a friend that I introduced. We hadn't seen this guy for 3 years, but we all had a big meetup. We're like, we're going to B-Dubs, let's get some wings. Me and Bob get there, and then this guy shows up. 2 wrist braces from double carpal tunnel, unable to flex his pinky fingers anymore, just like really bad shape. And it's because he literally plays World of Warcraft every day.
Oh my God.
Like, always.
What is it about World of Warcraft that you just got so sucked in?
I don't know. You start to get good, and then it's like I got in a guild, and then a better guild, and then the better gear.
The
and
guilds.
Then we were #1 on the server, and then I realized I was staying up to 2 a.m. just playing a game, and
yep.
I was like, oh.
That was it. Dude. I was 13 years old. It's 7 a.m. For the first time I had seen the sun rise from being up all night. And then my guild kicked me out. I was crying on the floor as a 13-year-old, like throwing a tantrum by myself, and I realized like this is pathetic.
I started playing WoW when I think I was around 12 or 13 years old, something around that age. I remember the moment it literally captured me straight away. Within the first 10 minutes of just joining this game, I was like, wow. As a young, impressionable boy at the time, just captured my imagination, and I was straight away addicted instantly. Absolutely addicted straight away, because I just loved the whole atmosphere of the game, the fantasy behind it, the lore, just the progression. You know, it kind of entices you to become addicted to the game. As soon as I got home, I would turn my computer on. When I was at school, I would be thinking about WoW. At lunchtime, I would have a WoW book in my bag because I wanted to learn about things. I wanted to see how I could get my character to be better. So there was no balancing. That's all I thought about, you know. And the same was for my friend and other friends that were playing at the same time. So I think that wasn't just independently me. I think it was everyone who was playing the game at that time. There was moments where I had very strong arguments with my mum about it. I just didn't balance. I was completely addicted. I would play from the moment I finished, from the moment I got home from school. I would play until physically I couldn't play anymore. My mum wouldn't let me play. Sometimes she would limit me to certain hours of the night. At the time, I didn't realize it was an addiction, but I just knew I loved playing this game this much, and that's physically all I thought about.
I tapped out. Grand Theft Auto 3 is when I stopped, which was about 2003, 2002 or something. They were just too amazing, and I was just like, I am nowhere in my career right now, and this is just, dude. I was walking around. I was living in New York at the time, and I would stop playing the game, and I would be walking down the street thinking about it, like I'd walk into the subway, you know, like not thinking about jokes, thinking how I could beat this next level. And I remember I played this Medal of Honor game, and they had this thing when you hit the sniper button, like the scope would go like that and X would go like that. And I played it one week so much that when I walked out on the street, I was looking at people across the street doing like that X was going on my face. I was just like, there's something about, like, I already, I'm not the brightest guy, you know, when it comes to like school and shit. So it's just like, I was like, this is doing something to my brain. So I remember came home and I just unplugged everything, but really quickly took everything off because I knew I was never going to figure it out and I didn't have the instructions anymore. I just stuck it in the back of the closet. Like, well, that's it.
I did the same thing with video games with Quake. I had a real problem when I was playing 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day sometimes. I had a T1 line installed in my house just so I could play with a fast internet connection. This is like 1998.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, there was slow internet where I was. So I said, well, what's the options? And so one option is they chew up the street and put this fucking crazy fat business line. It cost me a shitload of money. And I was like, let's do it. So I had it installed, a fucking business line that we'd use, at the time, you'd use for a large building.
Right.
And I had it just for my house. And I would play video games online all the time. And
yeah.
But I reached a point somewhere around like the year 2000 where I know one day I played until it was sunlight, until the sun came up. And, you know, I'm fucking 30 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, my hands are sweating. I'm all fucking caffeinated up. I've been drinking Mountain Dew for the past 8 hours. And I realized, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is, I'm not where I want to be as a comic. I'm not where I want to be with my life. And I'm just sitting here playing video games all the time. And there's no future in this.
No.
I've been stuck in things where there's no future before. I know what that is.
I remember like when I first moved out, you know, I was technically a chess professional, but I had a lot of time to kill when I was home. And I got myself a PlayStation, played a ton of FIFA back then. And there was a GameStop near me that like they made a lot of money on me just buying new controllers all the time because I would throw them into the wall. But I have that same personality that I become obsessed with things, and then I just have to quit cold turkey. That's the only way that works.
You know, I wouldn't let a computer in my house because I might play video games, and like that, you know, what if I get addicted to the video game? Well, opportunity cost. What if I play 2 hours a day? That's 60 hours a month. What am I doing? You know, that's some video, you know.
I noticed that gaming became a problem to me at the end of high school. My grades were dropping. I actually barely finished high school. I dropped all the hobbies that I cared about in the past. I had really shallow relationships with the people closest to me. When my mother was dying of cancer, since gaming was the absolute only thing that I really cared about, every time I was with her, I would rush those things and never really spend a long time talking to her. Basically rush to play games instead of caring for my mother. It was not caring. was not caring about anything besides gaming. And it not only extended to doing chores or caring about your own hygiene, but it extended to the most valuable things in life, which are the people closest to you, your life purpose, your goals, your achievement, your improvement, all of those things, which I thought would have been important even if you are a gaming addict, but when you are, they're really not. You only care about the game.
It was such an integral part of my life, and sometimes, you know, just many hours would just go by and I just play video games and I wouldn't give a shit. So what were the consequences I experienced? So I was someone that had a really low self-esteem, and I always thought that this was something that was just normal and, you know, it was always there with me and I can't really do anything to change that. I was also really bad in talking with people and members of the opposite sex in general. So just people in general. I'm someone that's a B student, so I'm someone that's not that bad in my, you know, studies, but I'm someone that, you know, wasn't at that point driven to succeed or anything. So I really just thought that success was reserved for the lucky people, the so-called lucky people. But I just knew deep down inside me that I wasn't living up to my true potential.
I started playing video games when I was about 13, 12 or 13, I think. That's when I really got into them in earnest. The thing that drew me most to those fantasy games was that there was real adventure there. I could always go back to those adventures when real life felt like not much like an adventure. And it got so bad, and what my real wake-up call was when I missed meetings after meetings at work, and my manager comes to me and she's like, you gotta make a change. Like, gotta make a change. She's like, this is like a serious issue. We can't rely on you. And I realized it just like hit me like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my job. It just got so bad that I couldn't even stay awake at work during the day, and I was missing meetings. So that was the main wake up call. And then realizing that trigger told me, wow, what I'm doing is not working. And my life is going in a very bad direction right now.
I am a completionist at heart. So when I got an Xbox with achievements, I was hooked. So completing games, getting 100%, yeah, that was pretty intense. When World of Warcraft came out in 2005 in Scandinavia, 4 or 5-ish, I started like getting worse grades in high school, and I started attending educations in university and dropped out due to gaming. Like, I'd much rather just sit and play video games than spend time on learning the material. And then it just culminated like a year ago, where I spent like 13, 15, 17 hours on it. And then when COVID hit, I happened to have a tracker installed on my computer that could count how many times I was online in games. It was like 1,500 hours during the spring of 2000 in COVID, which is just an absurd number. And that happened to coincide with the re-release of World of Warcraft Classic, where I got rank 14, I got full tier 1, 2, and 3, and all that stuff. And because I was exceptionally good at hiding it and covering up with other things. That's what happens when you're kind of ashamed of something as well. You kind of tend to cover it up with something else. One of the worst habits that I had was I put my girlfriend to bed, kissed her goodnight at like 10 o'clock, and then I played from 10 until 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and she probably had no idea.
You know, that's funny. I remember I had this first model of Xbox. I would play it every single day. That's all I did. And then I skateboarded with my friends and then came back in and did that. And so it just built up over time. You know, just going from consoles to PC, and you know, it just went ballistic after a while. And you know, it came to a point where I started, you know, ignoring stuff. You know, you ignore more and more. Okay, so you start. Okay, you can start dropping off small stuff. You know, okay, miss a bus there, and then it just builds up. Okay, and then you start missing, you know, dinners with the family. That's when it started, you know, getting bad. And I didn't realize this at the time.
But then at some point, my parents got me a PSP, the PlayStation Portable, and that's when it really started. Like, I remember going through every single game, whatever the discs that I had. I think my friends also had discs at school, so we would swap discs and I would play their games as well. Then at some point my brothers got PSP, so then we would start like playing multiplayer, some of the games, like completing them over and over. And yeah, from there it's just bigger devices, so bigger games. But then I looked up on the like some website where you can enter your Steam profile and see the total hours for all the games. And At the time that I checked, it was like 18 or 20,000, and that's just including Steam games. That's not including Minecraft, that's not including StarCraft, that are like on a completely different launchers. So I remember sitting that day and I'm just thinking like, holy crap, like all of these hours, like I could have been like really good at all these other things.
One of my birthdays, I got a PlayStation 2. And from there, it was over, man. Like, PlayStation 2, and then my dad comes home from work one day with a big bundle of like sort of second-hand games, and one of them was GTA 3. So at like, 7 years old, I was playing GTA 3. And once again, I was so young and didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd just go around, driving around, mucking around, having a great time, and spending, hours at a time just playing that non-stop. I was heavily addicted, just like that. They get you just like that from a very young age, because you spend so much time in the virtual world. Like I say, your real life situation is getting worse, it's deteriorating. I got to a point where my mental health was so like completely broken. Like I had incredible levels of anxiety. I couldn't leave the house to even go and get like some milk. Like there's a shop 2 minutes away walk from my house. I couldn't do it. It was a mountainous task. And because of that as well, depression. I was incredibly depressed because my lifestyle was terrible. I was making all the wrong choices all the time. I dropped out of college about halfway through my first year because one morning I just had a mental breakdown. I just couldn't do it anymore. It's just a small thing that triggered that, which was simply my shoes. I bought some new shoes for college and I put them on in the morning and they just didn't quite fit. And I just burst out into tears. That was the last straw, that's all it took. It's insane how things grind you down as well. I had terrible friends around me as well. I was always like the stepping stone for a joke, and that once again driven me more into the online world because I was a G there, I'm the best player at GTA 5,
I think video games are really interesting in the sense that they provide you with a huge sense of control. So for me, when I was like 13, I was being bullied a lot at school. And, for me at the time, that felt very painful. And I didn't feel comfortable being at school. I didn't feel comfortable playing hockey anymore. But gaming, playing CS, playing World of Warcraft, I had so much control over that environment. I could, I'll never forget my first time leveling up in WoW because the animation of my character, the like gold across that goes over your character, and now you've unlocked a new skill, and that feels really exciting. And then it takes a little bit more effort to get the next level, and then a little bit more effort to get the next one, and so on and so on. But I had control, whereas in real life, I didn't feel like I had that. Over time, spending more time in games, just like you said, you develop a sense of competence. So you're very competent in the gaming world, but that's a big contrast between the lack of competence you feel in real life. You suck at your job, or you don't know how to study. You're just not seeing any of that positive feedback in real life. But then in the gaming world, you're getting a ton of positive feedback. And so it becomes a very distorted view because you feel control over your character online and you feel very competent in that arena. But then in real life, you don't feel competent, you're decaying, I totally agree, and you don't feel control. And so then you develop these distorted thinking patterns of, well, I should keep playing games because that's what I'm good at. That's where I should continue to spend my time, even if it's also completely destroying your life.
There is single-handedly no hobby or side thing you can do that will probably be more damaging to you being successful than playing video games. And so that's why you can't play video games. It hijacks your subconscious. It hijacks your thinking. If you're going out and partying all the time, at least during the week, you're only thinking about business. You're not gonna be thinking about partying 24/7. If you like to eat cake all the time, you'll eat cake and then you're done with it. If you like watching tons of TV, at least when you turn the TV off, you're probably not sitting around thinking about Family Guy 24/7. Video games is one of the few things you can ever do that will be more engaging than anything you can do in life and simulates accomplishment, simulates growth in a way that gives your brain massive ones and your brain can't see the context and it makes you think about it all the time. Because you think about it all the time, you can't think about and do and operate the level you need to be successful all the time.
Game designers do something really interesting, right? They kind of balance wins and losses for you. Because if you keep winning and you realize I'm really good at this game, then all of a sudden you don't really want to play anymore because that challenge is kind of gone. Same thing if you end up losing a bunch of matches over and over again. You end up not wanting to play because you realize you're not very good and it's no longer any fun. So designers are balancing that. When you first start playing a game, they match you to people who are of your level. You know, if you win something, they might match you with someone more difficult, where you end up losing. So you end up going down that self-perceived hierarchy. But then they match you with someone who's a little bit worse than you, and you end up winning. So they're balancing those wins and losses for you. So you're always kind of in that sweet spot, and you're always wanting to kind of play more. That gives you that feedback of where you stand within that social system. If you keep winning and you're doing really well, then you know you perceive yourself as a better individual. Even if it is just in video games, it kind of reflects your self-perception of your own ability in other aspects.
Most status seeking in the virtual world pursue a particular thing which actually leads to relatively few successes of status in the real world. It seems to me if you are looking to be successful sociosexually, winning at Fortnite is not the most direct route to go down. So it seems almost like this desire for status and esteem and prestige in the eyes of the opposite sex and your own sex has been hijacked in a way which doesn't actually realize many of the gains that you should do.
And if we look through our evolutionary history, this virtual world never existed. So our systems evolved in response to the real world. And just like you said, developers are able to kind of hijack that whole system. And we seem to not be able to tell the difference between how a win occurs in the virtual world and the real world.
One of the things that you can do, but there's an important caveat, to increase your sense of meaning in life is to get into the flow state more frequently. That's why I said you want a moving practice that's conducive to the flow state. But there's one important caveat, which is we, of course, have figured out, and I'm playing with words here, how to game this and how to hijack it by creating things like video games. You can get into the flow state within the video game world to the detriment of your ability to get into the flow state in the real world. What's the opposite of flow? Depression. In fact, depression has been called anti-flow. So you get these people that are flowing in this non-real world, and they can't transfer it to the real world, and it's actually costing them flow in the real world. So they tend to suffer depression and all kinds of things.
And there's a reason why people are doing the virtual exodus. They're preferring video games over the real world because of the dimensions that are found in video games. So one is a narrative, and a narrative they belong to. Clearly, that's one of the things. So total agreement with that. One is a nomological order. There's a set of rules that they understand that makes sense of that world so that they can move around in that world with confidence.
Video games are thrill divorced from physicality, and they can play all day without any self-regulation from having to, the physical demands of actual rough and tumble play. They can practice shooting and running and jumping and all the things that, I did as a kid, actually physically. It's not that bad necessarily on its own. The problem is that it's so easily outcompetes the actual thing that we need, which is the real physical play.
The thing about video games and games in general is that they are ordered, they're forms of ordered liberty. They're not chaotic because they have rules. And if you're going to be good at the game, first of all, if you're not good at the game or if you're not interested in the game, then why the hell play it? So if you're going to play the game, it's because you want to be good at it and you want to play it. And so you've already bought in. And if you're going to do that, then you have to abide by the rules. And hopefully you can do that skillfully. And that scales.
Most games have some kind of level system, some kind of rank, some skill, something that you get experience in. And this imitates real life. It's skills that you can level up with grit and hard work. The more hard work you put in, the higher the skill gets. And we, as men, are wired to put in this hard work to level up our skills. That was supposed to be for us to level up our skills in real life, but it is far more convenient to get these virtual achievements because it feels like a form of delayed gratification where you get the reward in the long run after you've worked for it. But it doesn't have the discomfort of delayed gratification. Leveling up in games is comfortable, it's easy, it's enjoyable. It acts very similar to a drug where your life outside of the substance gets so much worse, and the only time you feel somewhat happy and complacent is when you're on the substance. In cases you experience that, before I even go any further, if you experience this phenomenon of the gamer's addiction where life is shit outside of the game, the fix to this is delayed gratification. It's quitting or at least substantially reducing your video game time and embracing the real world for how shitty it is because of your lack of achievement. You have to experience that, because that is what you deserve to experience, because you have not done the actions that would get you those achievements in real life.
In real life. Live in real life, right? So why young men are obsessed by video games, right? Obsessed. They're spending hours and hours and hours online playing video games. Why? Well, that's a proxy for career, right? Video games, you think about the levels of video games and what people do on video games, that's a proxy. That's like it's a substitute for the career that they're not having. And the cheap dopamine of video games and online porn and living online is getting in the way of real life. So it's risk, right? That's what we're not allowing young people to do, because we're saying to young people, you can't take risks in real life. We're helicopter parenting. We're not giving them the freedom. How much freedom should you give a kid? As much as they can cope with.
Everyone gets their sense of self-worth from somewhere. So why not get it from the real world? We are literally living in Sims. You can continuously wake up every single day and upgrade your character. I really want you to zoom out and look at yourself from the third perspective while you play video games. Just really imagine it in your head. Do you look heroic? Do you look like the hero in your own story? Now compare the way that you look in the third person when you hit a crazy workout, or when you get an amazing few hours of work in that's gonna further you to your goals. And now that is something to be proud of. You need to be the hero in your own story. I need you to start living as if God is watching at all time, because quite frankly, He is. And there's no way that you can tell me, if you're being truly honest, that video games make you a stronger person.
The point is, if you want to be investing in something and you're willing to pay the price of whatever unpleasantness or time or whatever it is that you're spending, and you've got all of these competing things that can give you a hit of dopamine right now, it's very hard to develop that skill.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this sort of entitled world that we live in, where we're so used to things being instantaneous and immediate gratification, that becomes a kind of a core tenet of how we interface with the world. We only are interested in things that give us things right away.
Video games, especially video games that have a very high update speed, where there's novel territory all the time, novelty is a big stimulus of dopamine. Those can release dopamine somewhere between nicotine and cocaine. So very high levels of dopamine release.
Now, our brain is evolutionarily designed to always want to seek out as much dopamine as possible. The thing that gives us the most dopamine is the most satisfying, the most fun thing that we can do.
Being addicted to something isn't just about the fact that it feels so good that you want to do it over and over again. And that's because of this pleasure-pain balance that underlies motivation. When you anticipate something, a little bit of dopamine is released. And then when you reach that thing, you engage in that thing, the amount of dopamine goes up even further. But as you repeatedly pursue a behavior and you repeatedly engage with a particular thing, let's say you love running or you love chocolate, as you eat a piece of chocolate, believe it or not, it tastes good, and then there's a shift away from activation of dopamine, and there are other chemicals that are released that trigger a low-level sense of pain. Now, you might not feel it as physical pain, but the craving that you feel is both one part dopamine and one part the mirror image of dopamine, which is the pain or the craving for yet another piece of chocolate. So you engage in something you really want, and there's an increase in pleasure. And then there's without you doing anything, there's a mirror image of that, which is a downward deflection in pleasure, which we're calling pain. So for every bit of pleasure, there is a mirror image experience of pain, and they overlap in time very closely, so it's sometimes hard to sense this. Now, the diabolical part about dopamine is that because it didn't evolve in order to get you to indulge in more and more and more of something, what happens is that initially you experience an increase in pleasure, and you also experience this increase in pain shortly after, or woven in with the pleasure, that makes you want more of that thing. But with each subsequent time that you encounter that thing, the experience of dopamine release and pleasure is diminished a little bit. And the diabolical thing is that the pain response is increased a little bit. The amount of pain, the amount of craving that they experience for the drug will increase over time. So much of our pursuit of pleasure is simply to reduce the pain of craving.
So we're constantly doing things to feel better. The goal should be to try to feel more. So anytime we're masking those feelings, and we do that through a dopamine spike. So it's, I did a 4-day fast last year, and my one takeaway was, oh, I just do this to feel better. I like the feeling I get when I eat. It's a dopamine hit. And it wasn't about being hungry. It was about getting a dopamine hit. And so it's like, I've tried to stop myself, guys that I teach that, if you have like a porn issue, it's like, hey, if you can stop yourself long enough to go, wait, what's happening? Why am I seeking this out? Same thing with bad food, same thing with alcohol, anything that's based on video games, gambling, you name it, right? Like random hookups, all these things that we know we shouldn't do that aren't really in our best, best thing for us. If we can stop long enough to go, wait, what am I truly feeling? Because what we're truly doing is we're just masking our feelings. And so if we can start thinking about it as, hey, instead of trying to feel better, let me try to feel more. Let me feel a little sad. Let me feel a little lonely. Let me feel whatever that might be. And then we can kind of work through it. And then eventually, once you let it kind of pass through it, it goes away.
Got out video games from my life. I started to feel a hype towards life. I started to feel a motivation to work towards my goals that I had never felt before when video games were an option to me. Even if it was just 1 hour in the evening, or even if it was just on Friday and Saturday evening.
I feel nothing but disappointment in the young men that I see who waste time in the virtual world instead of real life, because there is no excuses anymore. You have in front of you the accounts of hundreds, if not thousands, of men who are slightly older than you who have told you that their lives got significantly better when they stopped playing video games. So it's disappointing to see so many guys who are on self-improvement but who have this idea like, oh, but it's not so bad. Yeah, like it's not horrible. Congratulations, it's not like heroin or something. Fine, but is it good for you? No, absolutely not. And it's not 1 hour. Stop lying. You play for an hour a day. If you're 13 years old and your parents control how much you can play, 100% I agree with you. If you're 13 and your parents are telling you you can only play 1 hour of RuneScape, then you'll be playing 1 hour because your parents are keeping you accountable to that. You're not playing 1 hour. You haven't set like a fucking timer to play 1 hour. You're saying that it's an hour, when the actual thing is that you're playing for at least 1.5, if not 2, if not 3 hours. Every single time you log on, every single time you're in like a gaming mood, you play for multiple hours. But then it also takes over your mind for the rest of the day. Everyone's success story in the modern day, it's always the same thing. Like you've seen this same dynamic so many times. Young man is a loser, stops playing video games, stops being a loser, reaches the success that he wanted all along.
And there's a lot of people that aren't interested in that. A lot of people just want to do a job where they make some money, and then at the end of the day, they can go play video games, hang out with their kids. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to do something that's extraordinary, that's very hard, it's going to take extraordinary effort. It's going to take extraordinary discipline and willpower, and it's going to take objectivity. You're going to have introspection. It's going to be a lot of things. You're going to have to do a lot of soul searching.
In video games, you have a map. The light of awareness reveals where you have been and what you have experienced. This knowledge allows you to make better decisions in the future. The darkness of the map is the unknown, and you wouldn't launch yourself too far from the known. You must slowly puncture the unknown, let the experience normalize through skill acquisition and emotional management, and press forward. One purpose of life is to raise your consciousness, and this is only possible by living at your edge, embracing the story of life, the highs, lows, successes, and catastrophic failures. The most miserable place you can be is in the middle.
Get off your damn video games and the Netflix. Take a 6-month sabbatical from Netflix and freaking video games and TikTok. Take a break and go learn a skill set. Go on Udemy. Go on any of these, whatever courses you can take there. Go take some master class. Work under somebody to learn something. Go watch some YouTube videos from people that are teaching you. There's great real estate YouTube videos. There's great insurance YouTube videos. There's one called 7 Figure Squad. There's so many of them that you can go learn from these people out there. But if you don't do that, don't blame the government, don't blame the rich people, don't blame your parents, don't blame your family, don't blame anybody if you refuse to improve you the next 2 years.
And if you want a completely different way to get control of your gaming, that's not about going to rehab, going to AA, needing therapy, or anything like that, then click the link in the description to book a call with me or a member of my team. In our program, we use coaching to get to the root cause of your gaming issue, so you can quickly and easily regain control. Our method has worked with thousands of gamers, and the best part is you won't even miss gaming because your real life will be just going so well. So if you want details on how our program can work for you or your family, click the link in the description and book a call. And if you click the video on the screen right now, you can learn the easiest way to stop gaming.